The all-new WMEG Radio.
When truth doesn't matter anymore.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of The Outsiders. I am your host, Sean Sims, and in studio we have our special guest host, superstar, Doc Cheatham.
Good morning.
And also we have a special in-studio guest, Jovani Patterson. Jovani, say hi to the people.
Good morning. How's
Okay, what we're gonna cheer me. I like the cheering. First, I would like to congratulate the Maryland Terrapins on their first round win against West Virginia in the March Madness tournament. Go Terps! Congratulations. You can put the cheering stuff on now, Ron. Congratulations. I have to host and produce too. Okay, anyway. Second, Lamar Jackson, round and round and round he goes. Where Lamar Jackson ends up, nobody knows. So that situation, I might touch on that. The Colts might be interested, maybe the Patriots. Sports Illustrated has a headline, Lamar Jackson, biggest loser of early tampering, period. With free agency open, the contract dispute between Lamar Jackson and the Ravens remains unresolved. So, Doc, what do you think of that situation with Lamar staying or going? Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? What's going on with this guy?
I believe he's going to stay only because of the work that the Wizard of Oz has always done in football with the Ravens. However, I feel without a doubt, similar to the Colin Kaepernick case, this was collusion by NFL teams.
Okay. Well, a lot of people are feeling that way as well. And I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, his mom's his agent, which is, I love my mom, but when I had surgery on my shoulder to repair my torn bicep off my shoulder, I had to get orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Saltzman. Fantastic job in repairing the shoulder of yours truly. But I'm not going to have my mom do the surgery as much as I love her. So I don't understand. A lot of people don't understand that, but I mean, that's his call. And also today we will be covering the banking collapses, and Outsiders have some very important information regarding what is really happening. And we're going to go outside the ongoing talking points. So we're going to give you some information on that, and we'll be going over the Ides of March Rally held this past Wednesday in front of City Hall and discussing the strong mayor system here and why it should be abolished. And we'll be looking at the lawsuit filed against Slim Shady and its effects, including offering CDL truck drivers 10 grand to retain them and recruit. But be aware, guys and ladies, it comes with strings attached. And I spoke with a longtime friend of mine, known this guy for over 55 years. We grew up as kids together. And I've known this guy, and he is a trucker, and he told me, well, when they do stuff like that, it comes with strings attached. So there are a lot of shenanigans that go on, pulled by supervisors and management to keep those bonus checks out of the hands of the drivers, like fudging performance reports and writing them up needlessly, and kickbacks to management for their performance. So people watch out for that. Make sure that you don't get caught in that. And Also, Russian planes are hitting drones and so on, and craziness is going on. So we're going to get to that. First, we want to get to Jovani Patterson. Jovani, you have a lawsuit, I believe. Everyone knows about it. So could you tell us about what's going on?
Yeah, so the lawsuit that we have against Baltimore City Public Schools and the City of Baltimore, it's a taxpayer standing lawsuit, but alleges the tax dollars that we spend and going into the education system. One, we're not really getting the return on our investment. There's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse of our money, and it has led to the miseducation and undereducation of the kids of Baltimore. So, we have a lawsuit that is filed. Attorney Benjamin Krupp has joined on into that lawsuit.
That's big time stuff.
Yeah, and he's actually taking that nationally. I mean, if you hear about when he speaks now, he's talking about what's the education in the future for these kids, because really, Baltimore is also known as the city of first. But and we're shining a light on it here. But it's not just in Baltimore this is happening. It's happening all across the country. But, let's fix it here, right? I believe Baltimore can be the catalyst for saying, hey, our education system is broken, and it's been used to funnel money to, whether it's the hands of the administrators, whether it's funnel money to the politicians, or what have you, all at the expense, one, of the taxpayer, but ultimately of the future, which is our kids.
Well, we've been covering the education system here on The Outsiders, and I've actually had Dr. Sonia Santelises. She was the Barracuda of the month for February for for poor performance. They should have fired her. They should have fired this woman years ago with the Kmart outfits on and the $500,000 in salary and perks and bonuses and all this other stuff, and they're giving her awards. I mean, it's ridiculous, and you're right. This suit that you're bringing is long past due. It should have been done a long time ago. And the fact, Jovani, that you're bringing this suit and you're actually taking action instead of just talking. Words, it's fine to talk and get people motivated, but it doesn't mean anything unless there's action behind it. And to see this being done, I mean, I'm cheering for you, and any assistance you need, The Outsiders, to give you, do not hesitate, because this is fantastic in what you're doing. And how did you see things panning out with all of this? How did you expect, or what do you expect for the outcome for this debate?
Well, ultimately, we want the schools to do their job, and we saw the capability or the capacity for schools to be able to hold schools accountable with the situation with Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys. What they did with them is saying, hey, there was these things that standards or quote unquote that you didn't meet, and we're going to close your school, right? So they have capacity to hold the schools accountable, but when it comes to the traditional schools, the schools that are under the umbrella of BCP, Baltimore City Public School System as a traditional school, they don't have the same standards.
I noticed that.
They have the standards in place, but they just don't have to follow them. Right? So what we're saying, hey, if you have this high level of standard for these charter schools, and they're talking about, hey, we need to know where the money's going. We need to make sure you're providing the appropriate services for those kids. We need to make sure your grades are accurate. All of these allegations that they're making against Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, when you see all these traditional schools all across town not being held to that same standard, it's like
hypocrisy.
Absolutely.
It's hypocrisy. You have these low-performing schools by this CEO, superintendent, Santelises, doctor, with all these letters behind her name, which is irrelevant. Again, it doesn't mean anything if you've got letters behind your name and you're getting awards. It's your performance. Her performance is horrific. And then you take these schools, these city schools, and we have the standard for them, but you take a school that's doing well in the Baltimore Collegiate school for boys, it's doing well, and then you find these rinky-dink reasons to go in and give them a hard time while the city schools are performing at horrific levels. It doesn't make any sense. It's hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy at its highest form, and what you're doing, you're actually taking action. Again, and I'll say this, and I commend you on it, and you're actually doing something about it. At this stage, where are you at this stage in the suit?
So the lawsuit is now in discovery. So, we're going to be issuing a discovery package pretty soon. But the legal process is just, Doc, you know how long these things can take.
It's going to take a lifetime. It's so good. But this isn't going to take that long.
But the other part of it is, we want the community to get back involved in, the education and the culture surrounding education. Because the reason the schools and the government feels that they can do the things they do is because of, a lot of people are apathetic, right? Mm-hmm. They've lost hope that, the schools don't have to listen to me, or I'm standing up and taking a stand for my kids, or, I get blackballed or retaliated against. So, we really have to say, hey, this is the ground we can stand on when it comes to education. We have to start making noise from a community. We have to say, hey, we do value education. And I don't care what you say. I don't care how you try to retaliate. I don't care what you do. I'm standing up, and we're standing up for our kids and for our future of Baltimore City.
Baltimore is famous, especially recently, for retaliatory actions for those who try to do something about it. So for those who, what I would term, those who rage against the machine. And you rage against the machine, then you know what? We've got some actions that we're going to take against you. And I say to that, bring it on. Bring it on. You guys want to retaliate against people who are doing the right thing, then okay, but that comes with a cost. Because when you do things like that, people see what you're doing, and they take their own actions, and it metastasizes and grows. So, Jovani, what you're doing is very, very important. I'm glad you guys are on the mark, and doing what you're doing to get this out there. And I guess another thing I want to ask is, with all of this, and you just mentioned about, retaliatory actions and such, have you experienced or felt or seen anything coming towards your direction that may be negative, that might have to do with what you're doing with the lawsuit?
Not yet, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was a former school teacher in Baltimore City, so she's experienced the retaliatory actions inside. I mean, she was a union rep, and she would make complaints about certain things, anonymous complaints, and then somehow that anonymous complaint that she made, it came back to her.
Yeah, if it's anonymous, how's it coming back to her?
So there's retaliatory actions that have been taken inside the school system, but for the most part, we've gotten a lot of support. The biggest pushback that we get is, well, what about the parents? What about the parents? Like, there's a lot of bad parents, and that's true, right?
Yes,
that is true. That there are some bad parents, but what about the good parents? What about the good teachers? What about those people that are showing up every day and saying, hey, the resources that we need aren't getting here? And what about those people? Are they just supposed to take it because there are some bad parents out there, because there's some bad administrators, because the money's getting stuck at North Avenue? Mm-hmm. Are they supposed to just take it because all those things exist? No, this is our tax dollars. We're paying for this, mm-hmm. right? So we need the system, at least this one, to work in the best interest for the citizens and our kids of Baltimore. I believe we have the best and brightest, and I always say this, what would our city look like? If our primary community discussions are what side of town produces the most doctors, lawyers, engineers, entrepreneurs, business owners, tradesmen, craftsmen, whoever, what would our communities and what would our city look like if that's what's coming out year after year?
Exactly, I agree. The parents are very important, that they be involved with the the kids the education, the reading, the math, to be definitely more involved with that. And what you're saying, it goes right to the truth of the matter. And what we want to do is, because we're going to keep covering this issue with the education and what's going on with your suit, and keep calling for the firing of Dr. Sonia Santalisa. She needs to be fired. We're not going to stop saying it. And what we want to do, Jovani, is we want to have you back on. We're going into the month of April. Spring will be here officially tomorrow. Oh, thank goodness. I'm not a winter person. Shoot. I was born in June. I'm a summer baby, and this winter stuff, it was great when you were a kid and you could get the snow days. And we didn't even have any snow this year. But we want to cover this. We want to have you back next month and find out how things are going, in the process, and go over all that with you then. And we want you to stay, because we're going to finish the show, go over some things. Doc, he's going to be, Doc, we got some interesting stuff here. So we want you to stay for the rest of the show. And what I want to do is this situation with my engineer, Rock, get out of your thought. Also, he goes into deep thought sometimes. It's scary. Okay. These Russian planes are hitting drones, and you got a situation going on here in the country with the banks are collapsing, your cost of goods soaring, war in Ukraine, ineffective education system, which we were just talking about with Jovani, the border issue, high water, gas and electric bills, crime up, and all this stuff is going on at the same time. And can we depend on our leadership, our top leader? And this guy, I forgot his name. I'm going to have to do a disclaimer with him. But this guy, I saw him and his opinion, and he's a brother. He's a black guy. But he has his take on the issue. And Rock, could you cut one, please?
Make sure we thank the Secretary and Representatives Shirley Jackson Lee, Al Green, Sylvia Garcia, Lizzie Pinelli, Finell, and I'm going to lose track here. And thanks to Ron White and Jeff Merkley and Earl, excuse me. I know. You can call me Big. Real big. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of men who do so. End of quote. What do you think the line? Or maybe precise. Not anymore.
I will tell you this, the president is the best communicator that we have in the White House.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America. We hope.
3 words.
Oh, man. And just to think, this is the guy, him over there, he's going to be running more than likely for president in 24. At 82 years, I believe he's going to be 82 years old.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black. It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community.
Bingo. I want something for our community. This is what our focus should be, not just nationally, but since we're in Baltimore, our show is on YouTube. Okay, it's an online radio show, WMEG, so anybody in the world can get the show. But we're in Baltimore, and the focus should be on our community. You have, Doc, what do you think of that?
Well, I think we're in trouble in many, many areas, but it's encouraging to see and experience the young leadership that's coming to the table, such as this great young brother sitting on my right named Jovani Patterson.
Exactly.
And the future looks good, provided we take the appropriate actions as soon as we can. Taking action against the CEO is good, but we got to go to the next step. The board has to be removed as well. You know, you just can't take off the head. You need to take off the whole body and start all over again. You know, it's the same situation with us in the city council. You know, these individuals, if we don't take appropriate action in a timely fashion, they will continue doing and saying whatever they want if we don't challenge them. To some degree, we are responsible for the plight that we're in. The best thing to do is to get active, and we said that on Wednesday. The time for talking is up. It's time for action now.
Exactly. It's time to take action. Talking's fine, but you have to back it up with action and results from your action. And, you know, while we were having the rally, Slim Shady, that's Brandon Scott, was receiving an award. The same award Kim Banks and I received, the Outsiders received, on December the 10th last year, and that's the Black Wall Street Award. And here is the setup for the quintessential tale of two cities. On the one hand, you have a group of attorneys, advocates, media hosts, political candidates, and more advocating for their issues, including crime, education, BGE, Clean Core, food apartheid doc, and more. And at the same time, you have the mayor getting an award. And I'm trying to, was that planned to have it at the same time we were doing the rally? Who knows? I did call Donnie Glover because it was a Be More News Award. And I did call Donnie, didn't get a call back, Donnie, to ask him if this was the first time that Mayor Scott has received the Black Wall Street Award. And the question begs the question, who is the real Brandon Scott? Truth or consequences? Will the real Brandon Scott please stand up? Rock, cut to, please.
Celebrating Baltimore's Black community tonight, Mayor Brandon Scott was among several honorees at the second annual Joe Mann's Black Wall Street Awards. And these awards were given out during a special ceremony at Hoodfellas Bistro downtown. After receiving his award, the mayor reflected on the importance of support from within the Black community.
You get something from these gentlemen and from BeMoreNews.com, you know that means that you've actually had an impact on the community, and particularly in Baltimore, we're talking about the Black community, a community that we know is often talked about, but not as often supported.
Really? An impact? Well, the impact that I see you having, Slim Shady, is crime is still high. It's not 15% reduction every year, like you said. The impact is the BGE conduit deal, where you stab the citizens of Baltimore City in the back and cause possibly the rates, depending on the Public Service Commission, the rates for Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Harford County, Frederick County, Calvert County, Cecil County, Howard County, all over to go up. So this effect on the Black community, bruh, I see a very negative effect on the Black community. And with all due respect to Donnie, we were gracious and love the fact that you gave the Outsiders that award, the Black Wall Street Award. But Brandon Scott, come on, man, come on, give me a break, okay? Seriously. And now here is the other side of the coin, okay, for this tale of two cities. Rock, could you cut 3, please?
City residents is making their voices heard about some of the biggest problems facing Baltimore City.
So Fox 45's Jeff Abel was at that rally today. Jeff joins us live right now with their demands. Jeff?
Well, what they want is accountability from a mayor and city council who they say have been long on promises and short on solutions.
So brothers and sisters, talk is cheap and talk is enough.
Outside City Hall, frustrations came to a boil.
I'm talking about our water bills. Everybody up there water bill need to be upset. They need to be upset.
25 people from every corner of the city converged on City Hall tonight, angry over a city with so many problems and city leaders with so few solutions.
The number one killer of our young people in Baltimore is murder. I know that this is not a popular issue with the people in Baltimore, but we must look out and speak up for the victim. Any type of diagnosis you want to put on is in our streets every night.
The group, made up mostly of community activists, accused city leaders of ignoring the will of the people. They're upset over the mayor's recent conduit deal with BGE and attempts by city leaders to reverse the recent term limits, which voters overwhelmingly approved.
We're seeing some actions being taken by the mayor, the president of the city council, the controller, the members of the council, that they're basically going against some of the wishes of the people.
We're paying taxes. We're not seeing results.
We're being treated the way we're being treated because a lot of us remain in silence.
There's no indication anyone inside City Hall was listening, but as problems keep growing, the volume they promised will grow too.
We've got to show up. We've got to vote. We've got to speak out. We've got to be heard. And we've got to let our children see us do it because they have to continue it when we're dead and gone.
And that's what Jovani is doing with his action. The kids, the education system needs to be improved, revamped, and talking is fine, Doc, like we've been saying, but there has to be action that takes place.
But action is really needed today and tomorrow, but depending upon what the issues are, we got to make certain that it has an effect on the leadership that we have presently, but also, more importantly, the leadership of tomorrow. And I think that's where we are heading at this point, is that we've identified many of the problems and challenges that Baltimore City has. Now we have to come up with these strategies to resolve some of these problems. And, when folks give awards, you got to look at who's giving the awards and who's paying to get the awards. So we got to be careful because everyone with my skin ain't my kin. So some folks will give out awards to folks, but they got something under the table they're not telling us about. We're saying this upcoming election may be in a few years, and I registered to vote January 1, 1971, when I first registered. This, to me, other than the presidential election that elected Obama, this may be, in my voting history, the most important election in Baltimore City for mayor, city council, and the members of that particular board.
Well, I registered to vote. It wasn't 71, I was 5 years old.
Watch it now, watch it.
I did register to vote when it was 1983.
I'm laughing at both of y'all.
Okay. Okay, young man. Yeah, we got the gray and all that.
Gray, ain't got no gray. Ain't got
Doc's bald as an eagle, but I got a little, gray on the side. But I get your point. I mean, you got to look at what's going on, why people do certain things. And WBAL, they cover the award ceremony, but they were not there, and they knew about it as well. They were not there at the rally, but they covered this award ceremony. There was nothing wrong with covering it, but you could have covered both. WBL not covering because maybe BGE is one of their sponsors. Maybe that might have something to do with it. Ouchie ooh-wee, truth be told. See, we're the outsiders and we're straight shooters here. So, maybe that might have something to do with it. And their coverage of Brandon Scott as well. So, people take everything with a grain of salt. And I pointed out, when I did my speech, I pointed out the strong mayor system at the beginning of my speech, because we have a weak mayor and a strong mayor system. And this BGE conduit scheme would not have taken place in a balanced city government. Okay, so, Rock, can you go to cut 4, because I want the people to hear this. Rock, my.
very strong mayors in a weak mayor system. Now we have a weak mayor and a strong mayor system. So what it all comes down to is, are we paying attention actually to the person that's in that office? And are we, the people in the media and our San Diego residents, holding them accountable? It doesn't matter if they're on the city council, if they're a strong executive. Are we paying attention to them, and are we holding them accountable?
But one challenge is that in this strong mayor, and I put in quotes, system, the mayor is supposed to not only lead the city politically, but also he's supposed to be the administrator. So how do you keep politics and administration separate? Well, Gloria, you can't keep politics and administration separate in any city. So, I mean, and most of the major cities in this country have an executive strong mayor. I mean, LA, New York, Philadelphia. So it's just I think a better way to organize a city. And of course, in the end, it all gets down to the people. It's down to the people, but there was some concern when Proposition E was first put on the ballot 5 years ago. The opponent said, this gives powerful business interests a direct ear to the mayor. They don't have to go through their city council members. They can go right to the mayor and get their needs served.
So what do you think about that, Doc?
Well, I look at it, I think you hit the nail on the head with reference to the issue of the 5 members on the board. But it's clear what the history of Baltimore has been, at least the last 40 years that I've looked at it politically. We can even look at the issue of when we have city council meetings. And of course, many organizations throughout the world use Robert Rules of Order. But we have in Baltimore City I guess the president of the council, he always votes first whenever there's a council issue. Now, it says that in Robert Rules, you vote to make a tie or break a tie.
Yeah.
But in Baltimore City, not only do you have 5 members on the Board of Estimates, 3 of them belong to the mayor, but the city council, the president of the council, always votes first. I brought that up with Jody Landers about 20 years ago. He was the parliamentarian. I said, Jody, y'all are very contradictory. You're putting in your document, you're going according to Robert Rules of Order, but you got the presiding officer in every meeting voting first. That presidences all of the members of the council. I said there really needs to be a thorough look at the whole structure of Baltimore City, and we didn't become the heroin capital of the world having honest folks. We don't have The Wire. We don't have This Is My Town. Those things aren't accidental. That shows how corrupt Baltimore has been, and I can say at least for the 50 years I know of.
Can I jump in?
Sure, Jovani.
Because I think there was something also interesting that she said. It'll eventually filter down to the people. And one thing that I want to remind people of, and that's really the crux of the organization Peace, People for Elected Accountability and Civic Engagement, that I'm the chairman of, our main issue is returning power back to the people. And what I remind people oftentimes is, when you look at the first few pages of Baltimore City budget and you look at the organizational chart that exists, where are the people located? Are they located at the top or the bottom? They're located at the top. But when you hear the sentiments coming from government officials, it's going to filter down to the people. That kind of shows the value they place on the voters and where they are in the relationship of city government. It's not a government for the people, by the people. It's a government for the politicians, for the good old boys club, and then hopefully the people aren't paying attention, aren't noticing, and get the little crumbs that we promised them every little bit of time, and don't look under the covers at really what's going on.
Well, my take on it is that you cannot trust politicians, period. There are few and far between who have strong character and integrity, and you have to look at each person who's running for office. You have to really look at who they are. But most lie through their teeth and get what they want. That is why you cannot have a strong mayor system. People have weaknesses, and corporations can exploit them. Slim Shady talks about how much he cares for the citizens of Baltimore, then proceeds to stab them in the back with the shady backdoor deal, BGE deal, while continuing to let trash pile up all over the city. The mayor, through usage of this system, can load up his appointees as majorities within the boards in the city, including the Board of Estimates. He can place his cronies all over the city boards, and he can also spend money like a sieve, wherever he wants, basically. Well, I'll be more specific, not wherever he wants, but when it comes to nonprofits, the mayor can allocate money to nonprofits and these quasi-government agencies with no oversight from the Board of Estimates, and that's what happened with this Clean Core business, $14.6 million with the Clean Core nonprofit. So even though they had a vote on it, you know, it's a situation where the mayor can get away with things that he shouldn't be able to get away with, and the strong mayor system should be abolished. And Rock, I want to finish this out real quick. Could you cut 5, please?
You want to get a lot of new faces. In addition to that, these new faces want to take away your power. In fact, they've asked that they remove the strong mayoral government that we currently have. Are you okay with that? You know, it's my bill. It's my bill who said take away some of the powers of the mayor. It's more democratic. It's more American. The framers of the Constitution wanted a balance of powers. It didn't want one body to overweigh the rest of the body. It is the people who get more input into their government by changing that balance in Baltimore that is the most powerful, influential executive branch in the entire United States of America. I'm not only okay with it, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being able to have these conversations with my colleagues on the city council. I'm looking forward to being able to walk and talk and sit in the streets and have people tell me what we should be doing, so that I'm not the king. I'm not the czar. I'm not the guy who's all-seeing. I can't wait to share power with the citizens of this city. Mr. Q, I'm going to guess that you're not too thrilled about this idea that you can't do the things you want if you're the mayor of this city, are you?
Well, I think it's about the people of the city, but what I would like to see us is focus on how we build a great city. How do we get our city working? How do we work together? But more importantly, you should have a relationship with the city council. You should have a relationship with the president. But the thing that you really want is to be able to make decisions in the best interest of the people. And that's what a mayor does. And when you elect someone that you can trust, when you elect someone who knows about accountability, when you elect someone who has a vision for the city, then that's what you want to give that mayor, the power to make decisions that are in the best interest of the people. And that's what the kind of mayor that I'll be.
Carl was 100% right. Kathy was 100% wrong.
Bingo. Catherine Pugh, you were way off wrong. I don't know what you're talking about. What she was talking about. The mayor needs it. Oh, so let me get this straight. So you give someone all this power, and you're going to assume that they're going to make all the right decisions, like Holly. Sorry about that slipped out. Yeah, right. Okay, this is so... I saw this clip. I said, I have to put this on because Carl Stokes was correct. The founders of this country did not want to have a king in government in any jurisdiction, including mayor, and starting with the president. The concentration of power in this czar, Caesar, king in the person of the mayor of Baltimore City needs to end. This is where, just like Julius Caesar had his demise, the strong mayor system received its first dagger at the hands of the outsiders when I announced that the strong mayor system should end at the rally, the Ides of March 15th rally. And last week, speaking of something that I introduced at the rally, last week, a writ of mandamus was filed at the circuit court for Baltimore City. And Rock, could you go ahead and cut 6 on that?
Yeah, with the city moves to bi-weekly recycling due to the pandemic and limited staffing shortages, at first, Baltimore City residents were understanding. But now, 3 years post-pandemic, many of them are saying enough is enough. On windy days like this, blue blue bins filled to the brim can quickly turn into trash tumbling up and down the streets.
It would blow all over my yard and the neighbor's yard.
Desmond Finney says post-pandemic he has twice the recycling.
So much as package delivery.
But with half the pickups,
I had to build a fence to contain it all, to hold it for that long and, not create a bunch of litter around the neighborhood.
After more than a year of rollback recycling, Stinney is among more than 60 Baltimore City residents saying enough is enough. The grassroots group filing a petition in circuit court, pointing to Article 23, Sections 1 through 4 of the city charter, which requires the city to perform weekly recycling collections.
That frequency is codified in our city charter. And it's not an option for the mayor to be out of compliance, on that article.
Along with the constant overflow of cardboard boxes, Stinney says the city's recent $15 million investment in Clean Core, a community-based cleanup initiative, is what ultimately pushed him to file this petition.
I think it just proves how tone-deaf the administration is on such a basic issue. If you look at the amount of money being spent, that money could easily be spent with a contractor to pick up our recycling every other week.
Clearly, there's no sense of urgency.
It's an argument Councilman Yitzi Slifer has made time and time again. He says because residents are still paying for weekly recycling, the city should either comply with city code or compensate them for the lack of service.
Really, they owe the taxpayers a refund.
According to Stinney, this fence alone costing him
well over $3,000.
$3,000, I guess, to set up, a bin around the house so the recycle won't spill in the streets and the trash. Doc, what do you think of this trash issue?
Well, I got a real problem with middle-class folks thinking that recycling is the biggest issue. This morning at 6:15, I get called by the DPW to let me know where the roll-off would be, which is a dumpster, to our area. We have 4 roll-offs a year, and we could use one every month. We're not as much concerned about recycling as we are the garbage that brings the rats, the mice, the different rodents that we have. Yes, recycling is an issue, but to me, it's a middle-class bourgeois issue. I'm more concerned about the fact that after 2 hours this morning from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, my bin is full, and we cannot put any more stuff in the dumpster because it's full with garbage. And we experience this in certain communities every week, to me, being concerned about recycling is us to be worried about leaf blowers when the city is dying.
Well, this petition does have something covering exactly what you're talking about with that article that deals with 23(1) through 4. It does list that the petitioners have a direct interest in the mandated regular performance of recycling collection. This is what the petition lawsuit against Mayor Brandon Scott, and that the building up of mounting waste, Doc, and that's your concern, that mounting waste and recyclable materials from non-performance is harmful. So what's going on is the waste in the city, the people who are maybe more concerned about the recyclables, they have their concern, and you have people who are concerned about the trash and the mice and rats that brings about with this trash not getting picked up. And it also says here the Director of Public Works has charge of the following services as authorized or required to be done by the city: the cleaning of public streets, lanes, and alleys, and the collection and removal of mixed refuse, trash and garbage, and recyclable materials. So it looks like this thing was started to deal with recyclables, but the way they put it in the language with the actual charter states that this waste has to be picked up every week, the recyclables have to be picked up every week. And folks, what you should do is, whether it's the trash or the recyclables, go to onetermbrandon.com. That's where the petition is being signed off. So if you're a citizen of the city of Baltimore and you're doing a lot of talking and all this is going on, here is your call to action, which I called for at the rally. Go to onetermbrandon.com. Don't sing it. bring it. Go sing it, bring it. Don't keep complaining and talk. You have an avenue, you have a vehicle of action which you can take. You trash the alleys, people who may be more concerned about recyclables, because you have people who are recyclables, they're more concerned about that. And then you have your people who are concerned about the trash. This charter, this article, covers all of that. So go to onetermbranding.com and do what you have to do and take action. Doc, am I correct? Shouldn't people take action instead of talking?
Definitely, this is the time for action, no matter where we are, what we're doing. We got to be careful, though, that some folks have a hidden agenda. I don't mind telling folks, those of us that have fought for 50 years for civil rights, now seeing folks, everybody was having problems with civil rights, everybody's taking advantage of our fight. I'm concerned about the fights that we have, and I'm being very cautious and careful that I don't take on fights that need to be fought by the bourgeois and the middle class, but when the folks down at the bottom of the rung, they're not getting the help that's needed. So I prioritize. I know there are 3 things that we need to do for the next election. One, we got to make certain that we end the voter suppression that is taking place and has been taking place for 10 years in Baltimore, and that is you have certain communities that don't have early voting. That is a voter suppression. But we can blame black Democrats for that. You know, I call it like I see it. You know, for 10 years, you know, we've not had early voting in the largest populated area in Baltimore City. That's West Baltimore. We got to look very carefully at what's happening with our former felons that we had and still have in place. Armstead B. Corley Jones, who sent letters to them telling them you can't be registered to vote, but he didn't sign the letter and he didn't put a phone number on how to contact him. But we also got to look at something, what's happening with our seniors, that we had an election last November where our state senator, I call names, y'all know that, I call names Antonio Hayes. You had a major voting district, which was the Recreation Center of Lillian Jones. It was shut down where you had the largest number of seniors voting. You do nothing to help them get to the polling place. We got to realize we got to encourage our seniors not to go to the polls, but to vote by ballot. We got to encourage the seniors. You don't have the transportation you used to. You don't want to stand in line, which you must not, and you should not have to stand in line. So we're saying we got to adjust our voting. 16-year-olds can register to vote right now, provided they're going to be 18 years of age, not this November, but next November. We got to look at who's registered to vote, educate them. Then we got to make certain 3/4 of the people that are running for next year should not be reelected.
Well, Crystal Parker handled that election part of the rally, and she said some very poignant things. I didn't even know. She talked about the fact that with the primaries, we didn't have primaries before. This is relatively new. You just simply had the general election. And she also did speak on the fact that, just like you said, Doc, you need to have places where you can go. You know, you need to have polling places and places in the neighborhoods where people can be involved in the voting process. And they don't have these locations. Could you speak a little bit more on those locations that they don't have? That the people...
What you have to look at, of course, each county and city of Baltimore 10 years ago, we were given the option of having early voting from Linda Lamone and the state board. And those boards selected what the locations were. So yes, I would say the locations in Baltimore City were done by Armstead B. Corley Jones and his board, but there are Democrats and Republicans on that board. And what we saw and what we are still seeing even today, we are seeing certain areas that don't have readable access to a early voting place. So what do? Do you help the voters get to the polling place? Well, our good friend Antonio Hayes, not only did he know that there wasn't an early voting site, but he also realized that one of his major polling places was Lillian Jones was being shut down. He didn't have not one campaign piece of literature on it, and he did nothing to help our people get the vote. So we got to really take a thorough look at this upcoming election and try to, I guess, tackle some of the shortcomings that took place 4 years ago and last year. But the main thing is we got to first get them educated, not register folks, educate folks. If you don't tell them the importance of voting won't make any difference to them. We got to educate them first, register them second, and then find ways to mobilize them to vote. And mobilizing doesn't always mean go to the polls. For senior citizens, it may mean voting by mail.
Well, that's a very, very good point that you make in regards to the elections and voting and how we can get involved in it. And what I want to do, because we're going to close the show out, but I have to go over what is going on with these banks collapsing. And people are asking me, because I was in that industry, I was in the finance industry, and I get a lot of insight on what's really going on, that inside information from the outsiders. And what I want to do is, Nicole, you ready for a cut 7? I want to play that. Okay, cut 7, please.
72 hours. If it survives to this weekend, it'll be a miracle. If it survives in the next week, a miracle. But Credit Suisse is on the verge of collapse. And what's going to happen from there will cascade across U.S. banks, which are already extremely fragile following the collapse of 3 U.S. banks last week. And what I'm going to cover here today, in today's broadcast, is the fact that it looks like the entire Western financial system is going to be annihilated. Not tomorrow, not in 1 week, not even in 1 month, but we are now in the opening segments of the final chapter. Let's say if we're reading the book of the self-annihilation of Western finance, we're in the last chapter, but we're reading the first few paragraphs, and they go something like, oh, first 3 banks collapsed, and then the woke regulators bailed them out by printing money. And, here we go. And then Credit Suisse collapsed. And then there was contagion that spread. It took some time. It took a few weeks, but there was more contagion. And then the systemically important banks, the SIBs, began to fail. And then the Treasury and the Fed panicked and printed $25 trillion and injected that into the liquidity of the system. And then a few months later, hyperinflation kicked in and so on. This is the chapter that we're reading right now. And it ends with the annihilation of Western finance and, frankly, the annihilation of the dollar.
I just want to, I've had my thoughts on this, and yes, I'm privy to information as far as things that are going to happen with the banking system, the SWIFT system, which we're on now, GSARA, which is a new system that's supposed to be implemented. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but this is what I've been hearing, the scuttlebutt, for some years now. And I'm going to dive some more into this. But Mike Adams, you can look at Mike Adams. He's a financial guy and talks about things like this. What's going on? It seems as though possibly the pages of the book of Revelation have begun to open. And what was written almost 2,000 years ago may be starting to come to fruition. My grandfather was a pastor, and I grew up in the church. And he was invited to the White House to speak on 3 different occasions. He was pretty well known throughout Baltimore City, Maryland, and certain places in the country, as a matter of fact. He was all over the country on radio and did local TV here as well, and I was a producer and so on with that. But I became a student of Bible prophecy, and if you will, basically, somewhat of an expert on the subject matter. And this banking crisis collapse situation it looks very serious. It looks to be a biblical proportion. We'll see. We'll see what happens, because we've had crises in the past and things got taken care of. But the printing of more and more money, Gerald Celente of the Trends Journal, you can look him up, and he's saying these bankers are running scared, and there's going to be tons and tons and tons of bailouts as well with what's going on with this situation. Doc, what do you think of this banking issue?
Well, I think Celente is on to something, but I have a little bit of a different twist. Is the folks that are being harmed the most as a result of this banking, that's why you print more money, is you want the folks that put money into the bank, you don't want them hurt. But at the end of the day, I think the investigation needs to be done as to how it all emanated. It's the same thing I see now that, like in Maryland, we got folks that invested money in the education of their children, and now all of that money is not there. Well, I think at the bottom line of both of these issues is greed. I think, we got to look very carefully at why these banks did what they did. There was decisions that were made to end up having to bail them out. And I really think the problem is that there's a greed that we're not investigating. I think the same thing with these colleges and the parents paying for their college students to go to school. We need to look a little bit further, because you are accruing money. You are getting more money in because your money was being invested. And I'm saying what's happening now is these things that are being done economically are falling back on people at this point.
Well, these banks, they bail out their own the rich. Okay, that's what Gerald Celente said.
That's right.
They're going to bail out the rich, and this FDIC, there's hardly any money in the FDIC. So, please. So they're going to bail out those who have the money, bail out the banks, and they're going to keep doing it, and there's going to be, like Mike Adams said, $25 trillion printing of money, and they keep doing it. And then, of course, you have the dollar value, the faux dollar, the system that you have going on here. And it's looking, from my professional opinion and from what I've been studying for a long time, this looks like I just said, the book of Revelation. I'm a Christian man. I'm a Christian soldier. That's what I am. I'm a believer. And I believe that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior, and that's how I roll. And I depend on Him, okay, for my strength. But what's going on with this banking situation, people are going to start looking for something to grab onto, because the Titanic is starting to rock, and the system's starting to move around a little bit, and it's getting a little scary, and the news is telling you don't run to the bank because you have a bank run. J.P. Morgan actually caused the bank run back in 29, but I'm not going to get into all that history. But it looks like things are rocking, and it looks like we also have to, this show goes by so fast. And you were worried about staying awake because you didn't get any sleep. Doc, I told you would be wide awake. So what we're going to do, folks, is Jovani Patterson, thanks for being here. We're going to have him back next month so we can keep up to date on what's going on with the education, your lawsuit, and so on. And Doc,
calling for an investigation of the Baltimore port. You heard it first.
Uh-oh, breaking news.
We're looking and requesting. We've had 40 years of drugs being brought into Baltimore. We're known as the heroin capital. We can't figure out where the guns are coming. My guys on the street are saying, Doc, they're coming into the port.
That's where we're going to end. Welcome to listening to The Outsiders. Nice to have you all here listening, hearing, and God bless. Take care, everyone.